Archaeologists in the village of Norton Disney were digging through the mud when they hit something solid.
This is absolutely astonishing. Look at that.
This is our special find.
It was a perfect bronze shape with 12 sides and round knobs on every corner.
Which are very difficult to create through molding or construction.
I'm not going to lie, the experts on site went totally silent when they saw it. This was not just another old pot or coin. This was an object that should not exist because no Roman writer ever recorded it. They were sealed away like secrets. Now, new tests show that these objects were used for things far more terrifying than anyone ever guessed, involving shadows and even human remains. The truth. They tried to bury. Scientists have spent a long time trying to figure out a mystery that has lasted for more than 200 years. It is about a small bronze object called the Roman Dodecahedron. These things are really strange because there are only about 130 of them known to exist in the whole world. For a long time, people just thought they were weird old trash until someone dug one up that was in perfect shape. It was buried with coins and iron tools, but it also had something much scarier inside. The way this object was found makes it feel like someone was trying to hide a dark secret from the rest of the world. When the workers found it, they stopped everything they were doing. They had never seen anything like it before. The weirdest part is that no Roman records ever talk about it. No emperor, no smart writer, and no army manual mentions this object even once. It is like the Romans did not just forget about it, but they actually tried to wipe it out of history. It's been missing for years from the history books, but this key detail can shock even the smartest experts. Some people think it was used for magic or telling the future, which were things the Roman leaders did not like at all. The Romans were some of the best builders and engineers ever. When we think of them today, we think of the big stadiums and the long roads they made. They were great at taking a good idea and making it work for their whole empire. But these dodecahedrons show a side of them we do not understand. They have been popping up quietly all over Europe for almost 300 years. Every time one is found, it makes historians very confused. The truth is that these objects should not even exist if there is no paper trail for them. They are small, hollow bronze shapes with 12 perfect sides. Each side has a hole in it, and no two holes are the same size. There are also little round bumps on every corner. Nothing about them looks like an accident or just a decoration. They were usually about the size of a golf ball or a bit larger, maybe 3 or 4 inches across. Even though they look like tools, no one can agree on what they did. Most of them are found in places like Britain, France, and Germany. These were the edges of the Roman Empire. Not a single one has ever been found in Italy or the city of Rome itself. This gap in where they are found is a huge clue that something was going on away from the government's eyes. For an empire that loved to make everything the same everywhere they went, this silence is very loud. The way they were made was also very advanced. They used a special way of melting metal that takes a lot of skill and very high heat. Some are so well balanced they can sit on any side without falling over. This kind of work was not needed for a simple toy or a basic tool. The bronze they used was high quality, made of copper and tin, and sometimes even a little bit of silver was mixed in. This shows they were expensive to make. If these were just for children to play with, they would have used clay or wood. Instead, they used the best metal available. Some people think these objects might even be alien in nature because the math used to make them is so perfect. 12 sides represent the zodiac signs, the months of the year, and, according to some old Greek thinkers, the shape of the entire universe. If you hold one of these, you are holding a map of the stars that most people in the ancient world were not allowed to see. The mystery only gets deeper when you realize that they were made of expensive bronze instead of cheap lead or iron. Everything we thought we knew about Roman tools changed during the summer of 2023. A small village in England called Norton Disney became the center of the world for history fans. Most of these objects were found by people just walking around with metal detectors. But this one was different. It was found during a real scientific dig. For starters, finding one of these in its original spot is like finding a needle in a haystack. As the team moved the dirt away inch by inch, they found pieces of old pots and coins from the 3rd century. They also found the outline of an old building that might have been a workshop or a fancy house. The Dodecahedron was not just dropped on the ground. It was buried very carefully in a specific layer of soil. This means someone put it there on purpose. When they pulled it out, the bronze was still shiny and had almost no damage at all. It looked like it had been protected from the air for 2,000 years. When the sun hit it, the object threw strange shadows on the ground that looked like layers of shapes. One person there said it looked like it was made to play with light. This started a lot of new ideas about what it was for. The Norton Disney find is now one of the best ones ever found. Big museums in London and Oxford want to study it right now. But why was it hidden so well? If it were a holy object, why was it buried in total silence? Some people think it was taken away from the public on purpose. It might have been a piece of forbidden knowledge that was not allowed anymore. What most people don't realize is that these objects might have been feared by the people who owned them. Maybe it belonged to a group of people who had to hide their beliefs as the Roman army moved in. The more we look at it, the more it seems like it was not a tool for the living, but a way to deal with things we cannot see. Science versus folklore. Some wild theories suggest that the knobs on the corners were used to stretch human skin for drum making or even more gruesome rituals. Others believe that if you put a specific type of incense inside and blow through the holes, the smoke would create a map of the future. This would have been seen as dangerous magic by the Roman government. They had very strict laws about who could talk to the gods. If you were caught with a future-telling machine that wasn't approved by the emperor, the punishment was very harsh. That is probably why we find them in holes in the ground. People were hiding their secret technology from the Roman police. These objects represent a hidden science that worked with the vibrations of the earth. Some scientists think that the differently sized holes were made to whistle when the wind blew at certain speeds, giving a warning of a coming storm or even an earthquake. This kind of vibration science is something we are only just starting to understand today. The old ideas about what these objects did are starting to fall apart under the weight of new facts. For decades, people told us these were just for measuring distances or holding candles. Some people even said they were for knitting gloves. But none of those ideas really work when you try them out. The idea that soldiers used them to see how far away an enemy was has a lot of problems. Things get even crazier when you realize that no two dodecahedrons are exactly the same size. If they were for measuring, they would all need to be identical. But the holes are all different, and there are no numbers on them to help a soldier do math. Plus, we never find them with army gear or weapons. They just do not act like military tools. The knitting idea is also pretty weak. While you can use them to make fingers for gloves, the Romans had other ways to do that, which were much easier. Why would they spend a lot of money on fancy bronze just to make a sock? Also, no one has ever found any bits of wool or string inside them. The candle holder idea is even worse. So here's the deal. Most of these objects have big holes on the top and bottom, so the wax would just fall right through. And we do not find any marks from fire or smoke on them. If they held candles, they would be stained or burnt, but they are usually very clean. Some people on the internet even thought they were like old hand grenades, but they are hollow and made of thin bronze, so they would not blow up very well. Since the normal ideas do not work, scientists are looking at much weirder possibilities. Some think they were used to track the stars or the sun. Others think they were used for rituals that used sound or light. Basically, they might be part of a secret science that the Romans never wanted to put in their books. A famous thinker named Plato once said a 12-sided shape represented the whole universe. If the people who made these believed that, then these objects were much more than just tools. They were a way to hold the secrets of the world in your hand. There is a very wild theory that these were actually components of a larger machine. Imagine if hundreds of these were placed in a grid across Europe. They could have been used to create a communication network using light signals, or even a primitive form of electricity. We know the Romans were smart, but maybe they were even smarter than we give them credit for. They might have discovered how to use the Earth's natural energy. When the Christian Church took over the empire, they might have seen this energy as evil and ordered all the machines to be taken apart. This would explain why we only find the small bronze pieces and never the rest of the machine. The Dodecahedrons are the leftover bits of a forgotten age of power. They were high-tech sensors for a world that ran on nature instead of oil. The location of these finds tells us a story about a culture that was trying to stay alive under Roman rule. Almost all of these objects are found in places that used to belong to the Celts. This includes Britain and parts of France. These were places where Roman law was the boss, but the old ways of the local people were still there under the surface. It's been missing from our history that the Romans were actually very scared of local magic. The dodecahedrons are often found near graves, river crossings, or the edges of towns. In the old days, people thought these places were like doors between our world and the spirit world. You do not just lose an expensive bronze tool in a graveyard by accident. You put it there for a reason. Another weird thing is that many of these objects do not show any signs of being used every day. The edges are not worn down, and the metal is not smooth from being touched a lot. This suggests they were only brought out for special moments and then hidden away again. I'm not going to lie, this sounds exactly like how people treat secret religious items. The fact that the Romans never wrote about them might be because they were illegal. Rome had laws against magic and telling the future without permission. If you were caught with an object like this, you could get into a lot of trouble. So, people might have used them in secret. They could have been made by local leaders who pretended to follow Roman rules, but still did their old rituals at night. This would explain why they used Roman metal-making skills to build something that was not Roman at all. Everything's obsessed with the idea that these objects represent a mix of two different worlds. They were part of a hidden tradition that was being pushed underground. The shape itself was very special back then. It represented the stars and the heavens. If you had one, you might have felt like you could talk to the forces that run the universe. Some researchers think that the 12 holes were used to trap specific types of spiders. These spiders would spin webs across the holes, and the way the webs broke would tell the priest if a war was coming. This sounds crazy, but the Celts were famous for using nature to predict the future. Another theory is that they were used as truth-telling devices. A person would have to stick their finger through a specific hole while being questioned. If they lied, the priest would use a hidden mechanism to prick them. This made the dodecahedron a symbol of the law, but a law that was scary and magical. It was a way to keep people in line using fear of the unknown. No wonder the Romans didn't write about it. They wanted people to follow their laws, not the spooky laws of the old gods. New experiments are showing us that these objects react to the world in very strange ways. Traces of the macabre. Recently, scientists at big colleges started making copies of the dodecahedrons. They used 3D printers to make them out of bronze and plastic. They did not do this just to look at them, but to see how they worked with light and fire. What they found is that these objects are like ancient machines for making patterns. When you put them in the sun, the holes do not just make random spots. They create beams of light that move in a very specific way as the sun travels across the sky. One scientist said it was like a clock that uses shapes instead of numbers. During the spring and fall, the light through the holes makes perfect five-sided shapes on the ground. This could have been used to tell people when it was time to plant crops or have a big festival. The thing is, the mystery gets even darker when you look at the chemicals found on the old ones. Scientists in Oxford tested 5 real dodecahedrons from different places. They found tiny bits of burnt stuff inside 3 of them. There were also traces of plants like lavender and pine. which people used back then for funerals. But the most shocking part was finding tiny traces of animal blood proteins. This means the objects were used in ceremonies where things were burned or sacrificed. And that's putting it lightly, because they also found signs of human bone dust on one of them. This was not an accident. It means the dodecahedron was part of a ritual for the dead. It might have been used to try to talk to people who had passed away. This changes everything we thought we knew. It was not a tool for a builder, but a tool for a priest or a magician who worked with the dark side of life. There is even a theory that these objects were used to cast curses on enemies. A person would write a name on a piece of lead, roll it up, and stick it inside the dodecahedron. They would then bury it near the enemy's house. The 12 sides would ensure the curse worked from every direction. This explains why so many are found buried alone in fields. They were active curses, waiting to be triggered by the feet of an unsuspecting victim. Another idea is that they were used to create holy water. By dipping the bronze shape into a well, the geometric power of the 12 sides would purify the water and make it medicine. People would pay huge amounts of money for a sip of dodecahedron water. It was a business based on faith and geometry. A secret book from a long time ago might finally give us the answer we have been looking for. In late 2024, researchers in France found an old manuscript in a quiet library. It was written in the 1200s, which is a long time after Rome fell, but it talked about much older things. The book was very hard to read because of water damage, but they found a phrase that stood out. It is called a certain object, the divine sphere. It described a bronze ball with 12 faces and holes that was used by people in the forest to hear the voices of those who sleep in stone. For a long time, people thought this was just a story. But when they looked at the description, it matched the dodecahedron perfectly. The book even warned that these objects had to be hidden from the eyes of the emperor. Basically, it says, they had to be buried when the moon and the stars were in a certain spot. This is exactly how we find them today, buried deep in the ground, near markers for the stars. This book might have been a record of old secrets that survived through word of mouth for hundreds of years. It suggests that the dodecahedrons were used to talk to the spirits of the dead. Some people think they could even change the way a person's voice sounded if they spoke through the holes. This would create a spooky effect during a midnight ritual in the woods. What most people don't realize is that Rome might have been trying to stop a rebellion of magic. By banning these objects, they were trying to take away the power of the local people. But the people kept making them and burying them, waiting for a time when they could be used again. Some people believe that the Whispering Ones mentioned in the book were a secret society of druids who lived inside the Roman cities. They used the dodecahedrons to pass secret messages. By looking through the holes at a specific angle, you could see hidden symbols on a wall that no one else could see. It was an ancient encryption device. This theory suggests that a secret war was being fought in the shadows of the Roman Empire, a war between logic and the ancient ways. The dodecahedrons were the weapons of the spirit. They were used to summon guardians from the forest to protect the villages from Roman taxes and soldiers. This sounds like a movie plot, but when you look at how much the Romans hated foreign superstitions, it starts to make sense. They didn't just conquer lands, they tried to conquer minds, and the dodecahedron was the one thing they couldn't control. A huge discovery in early 2025 has turned the whole history world upside down. A new paper was leaked online that showed testing on the Norton Disney find. The results were not what anyone expected. The Forbidden Legacy. Hands down, this is the most controversial thing to happen in archaeology in a long time. The metal in the object does not match the metal the Romans used. Instead, it matches the kind of metal used by the Celts before the Romans even arrived. This means the dodecahedron might be 150 years older than we thought. If that is true, it was never a Roman invention at all. It was a Celtic object that the Romans found when they took over. This explains why they never wrote about it. It was something from a barbarian culture that they did not understand or like. The truth is that the Romans might have been terrified of what these objects could do. Inside the hollow part of the metal, scientists found more traces of human remains mixed with tree sap. This mixture was used in the old days for very dark magic. It seems the Dodecahedron was a vessel for the spirits of the dead. When this news got out, some museums actually took their dodecahedrons off the shelves. They wanted to recheck everything they had told the public for years. So, here's the deal. Our history books are being rewritten right now because of a small bronze ball. Some experts are mad and say the tests are wrong, but the data is hard to ignore. The age of the metal and the stuff found inside point to a history that is much more mysterious than a simple empire of soldiers and roads. There is even a theory that the dodecahedrons were part of an ancient sound weapon. If you had enough of them, and people blew through them at the same time, they could create a frequency that would make enemy soldiers feel sick, or even pass out. This would be a form of psychological warfare from 2,000 years ago. Imagine a Roman legion marching into a forest and suddenly hearing a haunting, multi-toned whistling coming from the trees. They would think the forest itself was screaming at them. This kind of fear is more powerful than any sword. It would explain why the Romans wanted to destroy every single one they found. They were not just toys, they were tools of resistance. Every time a farmer finds one today, he is finding a piece of a rebellion that was buried a long time ago. There is a weird silence in the world of big schools when it comes to this object. Even though we have found over 130 of these, no big university has ever done a huge study on them until very recently. It's been missing from the big research grants for a long time because it is just too weird. Some people think that studying the dodecahedron is bad for a scientist's career. It is seen as fringe, or too spooky, for serious people to talk about. But that is starting to change as younger scientists take a look. They are tired of the same old excuses. For a long time, even big museums like the one in London did not even put their dodecahedrons on display. They kept it in a basement for decades. I'm not gonna lie, it feels like they were trying to ignore a problem that wouldn't go away. They didn't have a good story to tell about it, so they just didn't say anything at all. One museum in the Netherlands even had it labeled as a simple wait for years, until someone pointed out how wrong that was. In 2022, some experts were caught on tape saying that these objects were career hunters. They said if you try to explain them, you look like you believe in ghosts or aliens. But the thing is, the evidence is coming from the ground, not from someone's imagination. Now, regular people and independent researchers are using the internet to share what they find. They are doing experiments with sound and light that the big schools refuse to do. They are finding that the dodecahedron can make strange humming noises when the wind blows through it. This might have been another part of the ritual. Some people even think these objects are time capsules that hold tiny amounts of ancient air sealed inside the bronze. By opening them in a vacuum, we could breathe the air from the time of Julius Caesar. This is a wild idea, but in the world of the dodecahedron, nothing is too crazy. There's a growing belief that the dodecahedrons are keys to underground chambers that have not been found yet. Each hole size might match a specific stone peg in a hidden door. If you have the right dodecahedron, you can unlock a vault filled with gold, or even better, lost books from the Library of Alexandria. This would make them the most valuable keys in the world. Collectors are now spending millions of dollars to buy them on the black market, hoping to find the one that unlocks the ultimate secret. We have to wonder if we are missing a huge part of human history because we are too scared to look. When you look at all the facts, the dodecahedron is not just a puzzle. It is a reminder that the past was a lot weirder than we think. Things get even crazier when you imagine these objects being used in the dark of night 2,000 years ago. They were tools for a type of science we don't use anymore. It was a science of shadows, spirits, and the stars. The Romans tried to bury it, and for a long time, it worked. But the Earth is finally giving up its secrets. Is it possible that these objects are still waiting for something? They were buried so carefully, almost like they were being stored for later. What most people don't realize is that we might be uncovering something that was never meant to be found. If they were used for dark rituals, should we even be touching them? Some people think the discovery of so many lately is a sign of something bigger. But for now, we just have the bronze and the bones. The mystery of the Dodecahedron is far from over. Every new find adds a new piece to a story that spans thousands of miles and hundreds of years. Basically, we are looking at the fingerprints of a lost world. Whether it was magic, science, or something in between, it was important enough for people to die for and hide for centuries. As we keep digging, who knows what else we will find buried in the mud of old Europe. The silence of Rome is finally being broken by the objects they tried to erase. Maybe the terrifying thing isn't the object itself, but the fact that we have forgotten so much about who we used to be. If these objects could talk, they would tell us about a world where the stars were our clocks, and the forest was our temple. They would remind us that even the greatest empire in the world couldn't eliminate the human need for mystery. We are only just beginning to peel back the layers of this ancient puzzle, and every step leads us closer to a truth that might change how we see everything. Are these bronze objects just old tools, or are they proof of a secret history involving dark rituals? Could there be more of them hidden right under our feet today? What do you think the Romans were so afraid of? Let me know your theories in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more mysteries.